Section 1. In this section, I'm going to talk to you about what you should have completed in order to be ready to start your cut before coming to your appointment. First, let's talk about some terminology that I'll be using. A vector line is, as Victor from Despicable Me puts it, a line that has both direction and magnitude. This essentially means that it is a line that has specific locational quantities along a vector grid. This allows the machine to be able to follow those instructions in order to cut or engrave your part. Examples of vector line tools in Illustrator are the pen tool, the shape tool, line tool, and more. The paintbrush tool is not vector. Vector cutting is using vector lines to tell the machine to cut all the way through your material. Vector engraving is using vector lines to tell the machine to make a shallow engraving cut into your material. Raster engraving is when you supply a grayscale or black and white image to the laser, and it, moving much like a normal printer, side to side from top to bottom of the image, will engrave into the material to create that image. One other thing to keep in mind is that the laser does have a kerf, meaning that it removes a width of material equal to the thickness of the laser. You'll have to run fit tests to make sure that parts fit together before cutting your whole file. If using Illustrator, you must have the following settings if you are vector cutting or vector engraving. Before creating your file, make sure you use the web profile to make sure that the RGB color scheme is working properly for your file. If you made your file first, you can copy it, then paste it into a new file created with the web profile. Along the top left corner here, you need to have the first set to none, the stroke set to RGB red if you want to vector cut, or RGB blue if you want to vector engrave, the stroke weight set to 0.001, this drop down to uniform, and this one to basic. Sometimes uniform will be grayed out. If this happens, go to Window, Pathfinder, then select All, hit Outline, then I usually hit Merge just in case there are any overlapping lines. Then reset all of the settings I just gave you, and the uniform drop-down will be accessible. If you set your shapes to remain filled, they will be read as raster engraves. In Photoshop, you can set up a file for raster engraving only, but you'll have the greatest control in this program for controlling your image. When setting a file up for raster engraving with the laser, I usually do the following. First, change the image mode to grayscale. Then adjust the brightness contrast until you have a true white and a wide enough color range for the laser to differentiate areas of the image more easily. At this point, you can also add some pixelation if you want to give more of a woodcut carving look or something else, like for instance using the mezzotint filter. You can send your print when it is still grayscale. However, if you're using a pixelate filter, I would suggest changing your mode once more at this point to bitmap. All lines in Rhino are vector lines. We can use these for vector cutting and engraving. Please use the following settings. Select your line and apply it to the layer that you want it to be on. You can also rename layers so that you have cut and engrave layers. Change the layer color to either RGB red for vector cutting, or RGB blue for vector engraving. Go to the object properties and change the color to the same as the layer.